we're so thankful to have you here.
Wow, thank you.
For all of us, I think last night was so special. All of us have been touched by the songs that you've written and by the life that you've lived, because really the songs, the impact has come from just living a faithful life in so many different seasons. And for us, having you here in Miami, we couldn't miss out on the opportunity to be able to hear a little bit more about your journey.
Sure.
And so I guess my first question for you is, how did you come to a place where you knew this is what I want to give my life away to do? I want to spend my life worshiping.
Wow. Well, it's just so amazing to be here. I used to dream of like churches like this, you know, and now that you're the dream come true, you know. So you got to realise that this is really special, what's happening here. So be encouraged. But anyway, back to the question.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
I was brought up in a really conservative church home. My mum and dad were Christians, but we never talked about the Holy Spirit, it was just a little bit dead. It was called a Brethren church. There was about 100 people in it, and the lady played the organ, and it was that sort of thing, you know. Nothing wrong with the organ, by the way. But I left home when I was 17, and ever since I was a kid, I just had that sort of thing in me that was very inquisitive. I knew that God was real, and I was on a real journey. And then when I was 19, someone prayed for me, and I would say at that point I got filled with the Holy Spirit. Wow. And then woke up and wrote a song, believe it or not.
Wow.
And that was kind of like the first ever worship song. But I just knew from that moment my life was on a completely different trajectory. And ever since that moment, my own parents have been trying to work us out. And then I married a crazy lady.
Best lady on the planet.
Who's full of the Holy Spirit, and they're still trying to work us out, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you meet Anna?
Anna's dad ran a church, and I joined that church, and we met there, didn't we? And it's been 25 years this year. So
it's incredible.
Yeah.
So you two met, and you met at a young age, and you both had a passion for God's presence. And how did you get to the place where it was, I'm not gonna go over here and get this job, or I'm not gonna go pursue this other passion.
Yeah.
My passion is to write. My passion is. You wrote that one song? Did you start to write more songs quickly after, or how did you start to develop?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was really organic. I never sat down to try and write a record or get a publishing deal or do anything like that. We were running a youth event in our church, and it started with 70 kids from our town, and it was so lo-fi. I mean, you'd laugh, but we used to call them overhead projectors. Do you remember those things where you like had the thing and it's sort of on the wall, and then someone would do the words, and it'll come back. It will come back. In 3 years, you'll be using them again. But we just turned the lights down so it wouldn't be embarrassing for the kids to sing together. And we did it once a month on a Sunday night for 5 years straight. And we just kept going, and more people would come from the south of England.
Wow.
And then we would do them out on the beach as well. And then, you know, there'd be thousands of people would show up. But all it was that every month, we'd just need new songs. So, you know, we'd be singing other people's songs, and I just thought, well, I've got a feeling that we should be singing about this next month. And that was exactly what it was. I would just try and sit down and think, okay, God, what do you want us to sing? So it's only like now when I look back on those early songs and people sing them, but actually at the time they were just for that bunch of kids in our church. So.
But you were creatively dreaming of what you wanted a worship experience to feel like, because for us, like what happened last night or what we experience every Sunday, we experience an atmosphere like that in many ways because of the trail that Martin has blazed. Like that wasn't the normal experience 20 years ago. Like you had the faith to step out and to create something new Like, what were you dreaming of? What were some of the things that you came up against as you tried to do things that maybe people had never seen before?
Wow, that's kind. I just think certainly where we were in England, just church was just at that point where you realise it's religious, it's boring, you know, it's an establishment. And we were just 5 families, and we were just kind of going to bust through that ceiling, you know, and be a little bit irreverent, a little bit irreligious. We wore stupid clothes. I mean, when I look at photos, it's ridiculous.
I'm sure we're all going to say the same.
But it was all about reaching people outside the church.
Yeah. It's great.
And to do that, you have to swim against the tide, don't you?
Yes.
And it's amazing, this line here, you know, we're called to go into the night and bring the broken home. That's exactly what our calling was. It was to honour the church and be in it, serve it, you know, because at the end of the day, we are the bride of Christ.
Yes.
So it's so important, but to go ahead and just try and do something that people that would never come to church, kids that are a million miles away from church would be happy to come to. So, yeah.
I love your passion for the local church and your family's passion for the local church, something that matters very deeply. And I think for all of us, that's what we're giving our life to as well. What would you say to all of us? Because so many of us, we're just a few years on the journey. Some of us just a few months on the journey of really just diving into the nitty gritty of the family of God. Yeah,
it's amazing. Well, I think that all the time, for some reason, we always think that the stuff outside of church is always a bit sexier, don't we? You know, like a little bit more adventurous and a bit more amazing than what we're doing. It's the thing that saved our lives, isn't it? It saved my family, our marriage, and so if you can sort of make a home somewhere, you know, for you guys, this is your home. If you can put your sort of roots down somewhere and just say, right, I'm going to be here, I'm going to stick, you know, I'm going to thick and thin, you know, I'm going to, because church is complex, right? It's flawed. You're following people that are flawed. And we are flawed. So, and we all carry wounds as well. Yes. So you throw all that in the mix of everything and it's going to be chaos. It's going to be emotional chaos. But somehow that's just the way God likes it. And we have to recognise that that's the way it is, that we're going to serve each other, love each other. And, you know, the local church thing has sustained us through our whole life. And then out of that, you can go and do whatever you like, you know. As long as you've got the home and you've got the relationship, and you can go and sort of do whatever you like creatively, and you know, but knowing you're held within something in a family. It's beautiful. I love that you said somehow that's the way God likes it. I don't know. I've never understood it, but it just is. Everywhere you go around the world, it's just messy, isn't it? And, it's true. You know, we all have an ego. And we all think that we're slightly more important than we really are. Wow. Yeah. And so when you're in a team, it's so difficult to sort of. But and I was in a team for 17 years with 4 other guys. And talk about that for a minute, because here you are in local church serving, and then there's this combustion, really, as you start to write together, and music goes around the globe. Yeah. How did that happen? Yeah, we were all living in the same little town. Not many people lived in this town. And then suddenly, you know, people are singing our songs in America and like Singapore and South Africa. And it's just like, well, this is cool. And then we would get asked to go on tour with some of these bands. Sorry, this is going to sound shameful, but like people like Newsboys, who you've never heard of, and DC Talk. We have. Yes, we have. And then we did love them all. And then we did some mainstream tours with Bon Jovi, and like, you know, we were sort of in and out the church, and it was just amazing to see John Bon Jovi's hair close up. It really is alive. It's amazing. I think that your music was the first worship music
that you could listen to outside of a worship experience. It was the very first album released that you could play in your car, you could play as you were on the subway, you could play with friends, you could play in an atmosphere like this. And it crossed lines. Everyone was listening to it. Everyone was impacted. How did you keep your heart grounded to what you knew you were called to do?
Yeah, I think that you sort of, the thing is, you have this experience with God, don't you?
Yeah.
And when he touches your life, you know you can never run away from that moment. And so that's always the thing that draws you back. So however amazing it all looks, you have that friendship, don't you, that pulls you back in your community. But things were going a bit crazy, and we were invited on all these things. But we were running like house groups in our church. I mean, we were just like small people living in a village. Our kids were there at school, and so we couldn't really move to Nashville or move to LA or wherever. And we made this rule that we would only be away for 10 days at a time, which was a bit tricky because all those DC Talk tours were like 9 weeks.
Yeah.
So we just had to say no to them all. And they were just mad with us, like, why aren't you coming, and playing? But we just trusted God. And, and I'm still married. So that's a good thing, right?
It's the best thing.
So many of my peers, that's...
Not the story.
No, it's been a different story, yeah.
And that was a boundary that you set up that really made all the difference in your family.
Yeah, we'd be back on the 10th morning or 11th morning, and then every now and again we would say, right, OK, we're going to go to America for a month, and then all the kids would come. And we had 17 children on the road at one stage. Not us two, just us two. But 5 families, and it was chaos. 3 buses.
Wow. I love it.
And but they were the times of our lives, And so I think as well, you have to sort of have a conversation with God and almost do a deal with him and say, look, I'm going to value the things that you value. I really want to be married in 20 years, if I can be,
Yes.
I'm going to try hard at that. I'd like to be friends with my kids if I can.
Yes.
I'd love to be part of a church and not all that has gone wrong, and gone bad. I'd like to have friends that's still in my life now that I grow old with. So then you have to sort of say, well, that means I can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that. But I have to trust that God's going to do something beyond my control, And so that's something I wish I'd have learned more when I was younger, is just to trust more.
Just to trust God's plan and trust that as you value what he values.
Yeah, because we all have a fear of missing out, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
And I think it's heightened now with social media.
Yeah.
We see everything, and it almost, it doesn't just put fear of missing out, but it takes your focus off of what you're supposed to be looking at.
Yeah.
And I think you have such an incredible family. Watching your kids worship, I'll never forget the first time we met in the service. I couldn't keep my eyes off of you guys because they've had an experience with God for themselves.
Yeah.
And what would you say to us just about raising a family in ministry and allowing your children, trusting God with your children, allowing them to have an experience for themselves?
Wow. I mean, Anna, you should answer this.
It's great.
I just think, some of the things that Mike's saying, I think that I never felt like second best that it was his turn and then I was going to have my turn. Through Delirious, through the 17 years, we had to be together in that.
Yes.
And I knew that he couldn't get on that stage and do what he did without me. So it was never like a
competition,
and it wasn't like his turn and then my turn.
It's
I
great.
knew very much so that what I was doing was changing the world.
Yes.
And I think that very often in ministry you see something and you're like, oh, maybe in my season I'll do, and I just think God is just really kind. I've really known the kindness of God in the mundane, in the everyday. I'm not saying it's easy, but I don't think his job is easy.
Right.
So I'm just saying that knowing who you are and what you're called to and keeping your face fixed on that. And for me, it was bringing up my children.
Yes.
I have 6 children, and I want to do my job well. I want to do, and I just need God, I need church, I need community, I need people around me in order to do that well. And so, you know, that has been fundamental. I want each of my children to have a relationship with God, and I want them to find it for themselves.
Yes.
I don't want to, I want them to ask questions. I want them to, you know, even though it's sometimes tough and it can often get quite interesting, you know, you've got teenagers in the house, but I love it. Get their friends over. No question is too crazy to ask. Let them just open and just say what's on their heart. Cry, scream, shout, whatever's going on. You know, that's the most important thing to me, is that they find their relationship.
So beautiful.
That's it.
I think what I love about Anna is that she's the most least judgmental person I know. So our house is just full of people, and one of our mottos is that there's nothing we can't talk about, you know. So whether that's in your children or marriage or a team at church, there shouldn't be anything that's off the table, you know. Everything should be, even if it's a bit embarrassing or a bit shameful, or you know, it's always best to live in the light, isn't it?
Yes.
And you know, you meet people that sort of, I don't know, sometimes you sense there's a shadow around their life, and that's always the thing that gets in the way of relationships and God touching people. So no secrets.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we love your family, and I love that you chose to embrace the messiness. It would have been easy to say, we're not getting on the tour bus, we're not traveling, we're not doing the craziness, but you just come together, and it's beautiful to see it. The memories are wonderful. I love your entire family, and I love your heart for worship. Last night was really, I think, a pivotal night for our church.
Wow, amazing.
The way that you led us together to a place of just complete focus on God.
Great.
And lifting him up. And singing a song is different from leading people in worship.
Yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit about the difference between song leading and worship leading?
Sure. I feel quite strongly about this, because there's a real move in your generation, especially, that you know, that the service has to be perfect. Okay, you know. Now, of course, the word perfect is so subjective.
Yeah.
You know, perfect to someone else. Excellence to someone is so different to someone else. So I do like the pursuit of perfection, you know, of excellence. I think that's a really good thing. But the thing I like more is the pursuit of passion.
That's great.
So if you've got like passion in the middle of everything you do, then you can bend a little bit more, you know, because you're always, at the end of the day, you're focused on leading people into the presence of God, or the throne room of God, or whatever you want to call it. That is above everything that you're going to do. So everything that we do, they're only tools to get people to that place. And I think that more importantly now, you see, it's such a broken generation, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's a fatherless generation, and the stakes are high, aren't they? And so I think that when people come into church, it's not good enough anymore just to run a great service. You know, it has to, the sort of curtains have to come back, you know, for them to really see who Christ is. And so I will just encourage you to be obsessive about the presence of God, because that's the only thing at the end of the day that will set someone free. You know, whether it's depression, or we don't talk about the demonic much these days, but it's a very real thing. You know, it's the presence of God that's going to unlock people, isn't it? Yeah. So, and you guys are just going to do that in the way that you do it. You know, that's totally right for you. Another church up the road will do that differently, but just be who you are, and just turn the creative button up like 200-300%, because that's the thing that connects with people, kids especially.
Talk about that for a moment, because what you're saying, I think it's an on-time word for us because God's doing something on Sunday nights in our church.
Yeah.
Like, people don't want to leave, and you can sense God's presence in such a heavy way that people are having a real encounter. But when you say, hey, turn the creative up 100 times, explain to us kind of what you mean when you say that.
Well, I'm assuming, I'm going to talk to you as though you're all creative people, because you are.
Yes.
Okay, every single one of you
Absolutely.
is creative. And I think the tension we have sometimes is that we bring our whole selves to a church situation, but we can be tempted to sort of dial down part of ourselves to sort of fit into a local church thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think all creative people feel that. It's like, I'm this person during the week, and I'm doing all this crazy painting and sculpturing and photography and movie, making and script writing and whatever it is I'm doing during the week. But I sort of have to dial down a bit to sort of fit into church. And I'm not saying you guys do that, because you're VOUS Church, all right? But I think the Father, God, doesn't like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that, because, I wouldn't want one of my kids to dial down when I'm around. I want the full version of who they are.
That's great.
So I would just, I know you've got this anyway. I mean, I'm talking to the wrong people, right?
No.
But just have a culture among you of just going all the way creatively, and not, we say bottling out, or like, don't sort of pull back just because, we're a church. What's a church anyway? It's just a group of people that have a heart to see lost people saved. So use everything that's inside of you and be everything that you are, because that's the thing that's going to bring people. They're going to go, I cannot believe these. They're just the same wherever they go.
Yes.
And I think that's a mistake that my generation made, is that we taught ourselves that, we taught ourselves to do church really well, but it was sort of a half version of who we really were, and I think we're paying the price for that now. So you just go for it, go all the way.
I think that's exactly what we need to hear, because that's always been the heart of this house, is that creativity, our God, obviously, He's made us creative, but I think it's encouragement to us at this season that as new creatives come, as new people come to team, that it's not just our creativity, but now it's us being united with all the different ideas, that the collaboration pleases the heart of God, where people come in and they know that they have a place. I think we always got to keep our heart open, that there's more. There's more to be created. There's more to see. There's more ideas. There's more songs. And it's not just for the people in this room. It's the 120 people on Sunday who are in the growth track,
Yeah.
And I think worship is constantly changing. What do you see as the future of worship?
I don't know.
Because you've seen it morph quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, style is so subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way you guys will lead is different to how someone in Hong Kong's going to do it, or someone in Singapore, or someone in a tiny Anglican church in the UK, with a piano and a... So I don't think it's about the style. I think it's really about like purity, and I've seen sometimes like the worst things, the uncoolest things in the world in church. That I'm just so glad that I haven't brought any friends to church today, but because there's like a purity of spirit in someone's heart, it's somehow the heavens open and the glory of God comes.
It's great.
So don't confuse style with the Spirit of God. And so I think God's saying, well, just do whatever you want to do. But I think the thing that breaks the heavy yoke, if you can use that expression, on people or a crowd, or it's sort of the purity of who you are, So So I know this is going to sound like Dad speaking, but
Please do.
just be careful of what you watch. Be careful of what you're listening to, and be careful of where you go. You know, be careful of what your hands touch. And I'm talking to myself on that, because I know that the more transparent I am, the more sort of I've got my heart in a great place. I can pretty much do any song and the presence of God's going to come.
So good.
You know, I could do a brand new cool Hillsong United one, or I can pick one from 1972, and the presence of God's going to come. Because it's not really about those things and the lights and all that is amazing, but we're spirit people.
Yeah.
When people come that have never been to church or come from a broken background, it's that you're trying to connect with God. You know, after 2 weeks, they'll get bored with the lights anyway. Yeah. So I think just focus on keeping your hands clean. Psalm 24, he who has clean hands and a pure heart,
yes,
they will ascend the hill of the Lord. And that's, I think, something that I've tried to do over my life. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think for all of us, we're all in different seasons of life, and we are all walking together, but sometimes you're walking into a new season and you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
All you can do is trust God. And I know there came a time when Delirious, that season, you decided this season is over.
Yeah.
Like there's something else in front of me.
Yeah.
Can you just share with us maybe some wisdom that you learned in that transition?
Wow. Yeah, there's a saying, something like, in goals a man is great, but in transition a man finds who he really is. You know, like it's in the void that you find out who you really are, because you haven't got the big thing that you lean into. When you can't get on a stage with 10,000 people and that's gone, you soon find out who you are. You know, so yeah, I think that when there's a period of change or transition, or you're moving to the next season, the next stage, you all have to be really diligent. You've got to hang in there. There'll be a bit of misunderstanding. The leaders will be pressing down, going, it's so clear, this is where we're going. And then there'll be some people that will take 5 minutes to understand it, and some will take 5 weeks or 5 years. And that's okay, that's just the way we're all built. But I think that the main thing when you're not quite sure about where it's all going is just to keep serving.
That's great.
And the word to wait on God, actually in the Hebrew, another version of that is to serve. So if in doubt, just go and make someone's life great, you know?
That's great.
Buy them a drink or buy them something, or that's the thing that you can always do while you're not sure, and because you're in control of that. And so, yeah,
That's beautiful. Keep serving.
Yeah.
Keep your hands clean.
Yeah.
Keep your heart pure. When in doubt, go and make someone's life great. I want to put some of these things on the wall. It's so good. Thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Oh, great.
Thank you for sharing your life with us. There's
Thank
so
you.
much wisdom. We love you. We can't wait till you're back in Miami. Come on, let's say a big thank you.
Thank you.